And that's part of why I think doctors fall into the trap, because they don't realize that. They just see that they're making a lot of money now. The money has come in and they've had all this time of pent-up demand, and then now they have the money, so they want to spend it, and they feel like they need to reward themselves for all of this delayed gratification. So you can totally justify it and you can totally feel okay about it, but you don't realize actually that despite making this large income, after taxes and when you account for the fact you have to plan for your own retirement and you have a defined period of time where you can do that, you're not as rich as you think.
This is the Personal Finance Show.
Hi, I'm Bo Humphreys, and this is the Personal Finance Show. The Loonie Doctor wants to keep new doctors from falling into the lifestyle inflation trap. The Loonie Doctor prefers to remain anonymous, so all I can tell you is that he is a doctor, and he lives somewhere in southern Ontario. As you may have heard, doctors aren't always the best at managing their own personal finances, and it's not surprising. I want my doctor to be really good at being a doctor. They have tons of information in their brains, and for many, there is no more room for finances. And it may seem like doctors don't need help because they make so much money, but the sad truth is that the more money you make, the more debt and subsequent trouble you can get into. The path to getting your medical license is often very long. You get your undergrad, then 3 to 4 years of medical school, and then 3 or more years of residency before you start making what you and I would consider to be real doctor money. So the shift from the student-resident lifestyle to the doctor lifestyle can be shocking for some and can lead them on a path of spending money they think they have, but really don't, not tackling their debts right away, and not thinking about saving money at all. Often they end up working longer than they need to and burning out as a result. The Loonie Doctor decided to start a blog to try to help new doctors get a handle on things as early as possible in their careers. He joined me in the studio to tell his personal finance story.
Well, my first relationship with money was, we had a little bank account, and then if we saved money from our allowance in there, it would get interest, which we could then see in our little books. But that really didn't mean anything to me.
No, it didn't. Like you remember seeing the books, but at the time it didn't make an impact.
It became real when I was a little bit older. I still probably, 8 maybe. And there was this helicopter at one of the corner stores that I wanted really, really badly.
Okay, and not a motorized one, but just a model one?
No, just like a little, like a dinky car.
Yeah, sure.
A helicopter version of a dinky car.
Sounds pretty cool.
And I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. So I really wanted that, but it was $8, and I didn't have $8. So
you didn't have it in your bank account. Or maybe you did. But
I did, but I wanted to leave that there because if I left that there at New Year's, it would get doubled. You see? So.
Oh, was that the rule?
Yeah, that was the rule.
So who made that rule?
That was my dad.
Your dad. So that was his way of encouraging you to save.
That's right. Yeah. So he did that. So he gave me a job instead, though. So we had our roof redone, and the roofers had left nails all over the place. So he was going to pay me. He started out with 10 cents a nail, but after about $10-20, he decided he better down it a little bit.
That's all right. Okay, so you're able to make a little bit of money doing that. That's how you got
I got the money
allowance
doing that, and then I got to get my helicopter. So
okay, so but you left that money in the savings.
Yeah, I didn't touch that.
So that it was now. If your dad did that every year. Since then, the doubling concept.
That's long since died off. Yeah,
you should have held him to it.
Yeah, no, this was the '80s. Inflation was
sign
different.
a little contract or something.
Yeah,
you will double this forever. That would have been. But then he would, you would make him broke, right?
So. Oh, totally. Yeah.
So that's good. So you had the saves, but then you were able to learn that you had to work a little bit to get the thing that you wanted.
That's right.
And then was there a point then when you started actually working on a job for yourself, without your parents?
My main jobs when I was younger were I delivered newspapers for a while, which was my first experience with failed business because
okay,
the amount you got paid they paid you by the newspaper delivered, and it was and then you had to go collect the money, and
so it just wasn't worth your time.
Well, you basically bought all the newspapers from them, and then you went and delivered them, and by the time you took into account how much you would deliver, and then you'd get stiffed by some people.
Yeah, that's true, right?
So you really did not come out with much money after that.
No, and what about like Christmas tips, or would that
Yeah,
make up for it?
Yeah,
a little
well,
bit?
Christmas was good. It was
a better
you got some
time?
candies and stuff like that, but
Sure.
But the rest of the year, I think the margin on the newspaper for delivering
Really
was
low.
very, very low, and then the delinquency rate in collecting was high as well.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I mean, I guess that's why they get kids to do it.
Yeah, that's
right?
why they get
Because
kids to do it.
It's
Yeah.
not. It wouldn't be a fair wage otherwise.
No, I had no
so
idea.
early experience with this doesn't make sense. This setup. And so, did you learn from that and look for a better job or another way to make money?
Yeah, well, after that, I got busy with other things, just school and activities that I was in, and I decided, well, I can focus my time and effort now and then get a better job longer term, or I can get other jobs. But if that's distracting me from other things that can, in the long run, give me a better job, then I'm going to focus on that instead. And I was fortunate in the fact that, I didn't have to work for
and that's the question.
For our family. I mean, my parents,
they took care of
everything. So.
And so the basics, or I guess maybe you didn't need much except for the helicopter.
Yeah, that's right. I had Lego, which that was my main toy. And we played outside and did stuff.
And then in high school, like, what about going out with friends and things like that? Do you remember, like...
It was interesting. I grew up in far north Ontario, so...
Well, how far north? You don't have to reveal anything you don't want to reveal.
Yeah.
So it's a good time to mention that, this is the Loonie Doctor and he's anonymous. I'm not even going to say your first name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, we'll just keep that because that's not on the site anywhere.
No,
okay. So so we'll try to pay attention to that going forward. I'm going to edit out the thing that I just said.
Yeah,
reveal
that's right.
where the Loonie Doctor is from. We'll see how that goes. There might be like a little snip right here.
Yeah.
And okay, so somewhere
I grew up in a small
in
town,
the Timmins area.
Yeah, small town, northern Ontario. Is where I grew up,
somewhere
so.
between Timmins and Thunder Bay. How about that?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah,
or James Bay.
Yeah, it's somewhere if you can triangulate between all of those.
That's right.
destinations,
That's right.
Good luck.
Good luck finding the origin place there. So, yeah, are you saying then you didn't need much in terms of spending?
Yeah, well, I think it was different. Like you didn't have the good and the bad things. You didn't have access to a lot of things to spend your money on.
The malls,
So there wasn't a lot to spend on that. You could go to the movies, but the movie theaters maybe open, once or twice a week,
and maybe just two, or maybe just one.
Well,
one
it was
showing.
Yeah, it was one movie, and that was it. So either you went or you didn't. So you hung out with your friends most of the time. That was really the main pastime.
And
that didn't have to cost anything really.
Would you get if you needed money to buy dinner or something, your parents would be like, here's a whatever. Or did you have allowance still?
Yeah, we had an allowance, but you could probably do not a dinner, but you could probably you could go to
lunch.
You could go to a movie once every couple of weeks.
Tuesday. I think I mentioned Toonie Tuesday all the time. For some reason.
You could go to a movie.
Anybody
once
who
in a
grew
while.
up sort of in the 80s, 90s ish might remember getting lunch for $2.
Yeah, you could do that, or you could rent a movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Back when they had movie rentals.
Okay, so no real, I guess need is probably the wrong word, but you didn't have a lot of wants and desires for excess or stuff.
I had no idea. It was very different for me when I moved down to Southern Ontario, because then you have access to everything.
Anything you want.
Anything you want, anytime you want. You have to learn how to manage that, which when you grow up someplace that's kind of isolated, you don't have to manage that so much because it's not really...
It's not an option.
It's not an issue.
Yeah. So do you have an example of something that you just started to do that you had to sort of rein yourself in on when you moved down?
Well, at first it didn't really matter because we just didn't have money at that point either. So
sure.
But after I started collecting physician money.
Yeah. Well, we're jumping ahead. We'll come back, but
the money wasn't a limiter and the access wasn't a limiter. So
that's a good point.
You could go crazy.
Okay, so let's talk about that more later in terms of how physicians might manage that situation, because that does sound tricky, right? Especially I'll just say this briefly, but you're a poor student, you're a semi-poor resident, and maybe even fellow, and then you become full physician, and you are raking it in, right? As people would say.
Yep.
And if you don't know how to keep your lifestyle inflation down, you could.
Oh yeah, it's a perfect storm.
It is. Okay, great. So
really
so let's go back then. So you somehow know that you're gonna get your earning potential more by just focusing on school, and so you got so I'm guessing you got great grades then. You were able to focus.
Yeah, I did really well early high school.
Yeah,
and then I figured out that for things like medicine or teaching or the things I wanted to do was actually the university grades.
Oh,
that
they
mattered.
Okay, so
I decided I should pace myself. So I kind of I slacked off through the rest of high school and picked it up in my final couple of years.
You just needed that to
get into a good university, and then university is when I buckled down.
OAC at this time?
Yeah, we had OAC. Yeah.
So I was in OAC, and I think my wife was one of the last OACs, if not the year after. I always forget. But right on that cusp there where she knows that it exists, but maybe didn't have to go through it. So I did too. And it was just those 6 credits, right?
Yeah.
That's the only thing that matters. 6 Ontario academic credits.
That's
so
right.
6 grade 13 courses.
Yeah, and I front loaded a couple of them too. So in my final couple of years of high school, I had lots of spares.
Wow.
And kind of took it easy.
But you didn't work or anything?
No, I wasn't working for money.
You were relaxing. Oh, did you do other?
I
you
did
were doing all these activities.
Yeah, I was.
What other kind of things?
Well, I was an Army cadet, so
so you were in there. Yeah.
So I focused. That took a lot of time and effort
to
do that, and then I also competed in some sports as well. So that also took time.
Nice.
So that's probably where I put most of my energy in, kind of the latter half of high school.
Can you talk about the cadets for a bit in terms of teaching you life lessons and discipline, that kind of thing? Is that the benefits?
Yeah, it had a lot of benefits. I think the biggest thing that I took away from Army cadets was leadership training.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been kind of a theme throughout my entire career, even with what I do now. So the Army cadets has a great leadership program, and that's really one of the core things that runs all the way through it. So you learn about leadership, you get practice with it, and you develop those skills in that structure. And it's a paramilitary structure, so there's a rank system and there's rules and that type of thing, but there is that in any environment, whether you call it or not.
Still have hierarchy, even if it's informal, it's there.
And there's a difference between command and leadership. So command is the legal right to give someone orders and they have to obey them. Leadership is actually helping people figure out, sometimes it's helping them figure out what it is they want to do, and then help them lead them and get them motivated and help them work their way through that
to meet the goals of the organization.
To meet the goals of the organization or the individual, whoever. So that's all leadership, and that's very different from command. And the emphasis really was actually on leadership. So
you, today again, I'll jump forward for a sec. You have experience. You have actually both of those situations, right? You have the ability to give people orders in a way, right? You have if you have subordinates, but you also have the interest of, say, the hospital or the department to keep flowing.
That's right. Yeah.
And so the early training, you find it just carried all the way through? Yeah,
it gave me a very strong base to carry through. And then I've done other leadership training since then, and it's all variations on the same flavors.
Yeah.
And, you learn a bit about operating in different environments, which is different. And some of the, the nuts and bolts of management within an organization is something you have to do in addition to leadership, but they all still mesh together.
And that's not necessarily a common thing for all doctors to have. You don't have to have leadership abilities at all necessarily to be a doctor, right?
You don't. And that's the one thing about medicine that's great, is you can do pretty much anything.
Yeah.
And there's enough need in enough different areas that you can always, if you can find an area where there's a need and something needs to be developed, well, you can go in there and you can develop that. So it has all those opportunities, which is great because people can self-select what to do within that. So some people would not want to do, I'd say most don't want to do anything in a large leadership or capacity.
Administrative
capacity. It's very few that do.
Sure,
but and even for myself, I'll do it in areas where I think actually I can do something good and make a difference with
add value.
I'm not into going to meetings, and I don't like doing a bunch of talking without actually doing things.
Sure.
So I'm only going to take on something where I think I actually can develop it into something really good. So,
and it's good that you have that luxury to be able to do that, right?
oh yeah, I've been very lucky.
Yeah, because med school is really difficult, and residency as well, and then you would have spent time in fellowship as well. Yeah. So we'll get through that path in a sec. So you're heading to university now. You're chilling for a bit. Let's go doing your cadets.
Yeah.
So you're busy.
I was busy.
Just not like working the retail jobs like everybody else.
No,
is
I
doing.
didn't do that.
Yeah. But I feel.
I mean, I worked in the summer, but.
Okay. What do you do in the summers?
Well, in the summer with the Army cadets, I could work.
So you actually get work.
Yeah.
there.
So if you
nice.
do well, you can go back and be staff for their camps. And the camps every summer from when I was 12, they would run 2 to 6 weeks long, and they'd take up most of the summer. And then my last 3 years or so, I would go and teach at them. So.
You're like a counselor, or what do they call it?
Well, I was a warrant officer, and then I was a sergeant major. So
nice. That sounds so much better than
it's not as warm and fuzzy.
You're tipping canoes over.
No,
but I'm sure there's still a lot of the campy type stuff, right?
Well, the place where I was very fortunate in that the place that I worked at was in Banff, Alberta. So it was
wow!
They had a leadership course there where they'd take the top people from Canada, UK, and a bunch of places, and then you'd go there and basically you could rock climbing and kayaking and glacier climbing.
That sounds way better than landscaping or
way better.
Working at a grocery store.
It's way better. That was probably the best job I had.
Okay.
I did do landscaping and tree planting after that, which was a stark contrast. Oh yeah.
Oh, but in the breaks during university.
In university. Yeah.
Okay, so this is really great early, like to have this early leadership experience. I mean, when I was younger, anybody who was in cadets would be like the nerds, right? I mean, and so it's like there's all this stigma saying, oh, don't go do that, right? Don't be in this club. Don't be in the mathletes and all this stuff.
Yeah, it depends where you are. For where we were in the Army cadets, so it was most of not most, but about a good chunk of the kids our age did it.
Yeah. Okay.
And basically it was. We did, we went shooting and we went shooting and camping a lot. So it wasn't
you don't
really
want to mess with those people.
We made fun of the air cadets. They learned about math and math and
so they were the
science
nerds.
and stuff like that. So we kind of made fun of them, but we were shooting and camping. So that was our thing. So it was where else do you get as a bunch of teenagers to go camping with other bunch of teenagers of boys and girls all together and get to hang out for weekends? Like it was pretty, and you get to travel places.
Yeah, this opportunity to work in the summers, going all the way to Banff. And do you remember, was it decent money or was it just like living money?
It didn't pay much, I think.
But
it didn't matter. I mean, the experience itself was amazing.
Well, you didn't have to pay for anything in the summer.
No, exactly. Because you didn't have an opportunity to really spend your money because you're on base.
You're doing all this
the whole summer. So you'd finish up a summer with probably $2,000, and
that sounds great.
Yeah, and that, and that's 2019.
Well, you're
$1990.
So is that how you paid for your school then, or did your parents cover that?
No, my parents helped out with our first degree, so that was
nice.
They had two major financial goals. One was to pay for both my sister and I to go to university, and then also to be able to retire early. Those were kind of their two major financial
goals. Can we talk
about
about them for a sec, like without revealing too much? So what did they do for work?
Yeah, so my mom worked as a nurse in the hospital, and she kind of she worked up and down between casual and part-time and full-time, depending on what was going on. And my dad worked in the lab at the hospital. So he was a lab tech,
you're both medical parents, but neither one of them were physicians.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And so did you know you wanted to go into some kind of health sciences? Was that early or no?
Well, I had no idea when I was younger, but at the time I went to university, yes.
Yeah, so you started, so I'm guessing then you went into sciences.
I knew from high school that I wanted to go into science.
Okay.
And I was actually going to be a science teacher. I was in a concurrent education program where you do your Bachelor of Education and your Bachelor of Science.
So that's what you signed up for?
That's what I signed up for, knowing that after 3 years I could apply to medicine. If that works out, great. And if it doesn't, I've got a great career as well. So
did you after 3 years apply?
Yeah, I did. So
and then you got in.
Yeah, I got in. So
so now you're starting med school. And so your parents pay for this 3 years of undergrad. I
That's
guess
right.
Did they save a year on?
Did
it get transferred over?
Well, no, that was part of the So they helped bridge me my first year into medicine.
First year into medicine. Okay, so that
that
last year.
And it was good because when we always lived in a budget in our house, and then when I went to university, I got a budget. And
so they gave you like a physical budget.
Oh yeah, my dad gave me a Quattro Pro spreadsheet, which was my first
Quattro
budget.
Pro.
Oh yeah, and everything on it was itemized.
This is before,
to the dollar.
Excel, like Lotus 1, 2, 3.
This was that
early
generation.
software. Anybody who's listening who's of a certain age, this is Excel or Google Sheets.
It was an upgrade from the stone tablets and those little tapes that you used to put in.
Oh man, crazy! You stuck to this budget then?
Oh yeah, I had to because the tuition would be paid right away.
Yep.
And then I would get a certain amount each month. That was my money from my budget.
Okay.
And that's it. So I had to spend. So
early budgeting experience. Like I have to live within this. I don't have a credit card to fall back on.
That's
which
right.
I guess a lot of students might have, but they also might have a line of credit that they can just grab anytime.
Well, it happened for me in medical school. So
okay.
That
so
changes.
Now we're in first year where you're half paid, and now now the banks are throwing you money.
It's one of the difficult things. So yeah, you'll get a line of credit, and and usually. You do need some of it.
Yes, because it's expensive.
And same with, OSAP or whatever.
Do you remember the tuition at the time? Is this something you can reveal?
Yeah,
public,
I remember
right?
at the time. I came in right at the cusp where they totally deregulated it. So, I think each year of my tuition more than doubled. So
really,
my first year was probably, I don't know, $5,000.
Sure, which was close to maybe what... regular
it was a little. It was a bit.
Like
it was
three
a.
Or,
yeah, it was just
sure.
a little bit more, and then it was 10 by the second year, and then it was up in the teens by the year after that. So,
wow.
When we were all learning, where does all the money go?
What did they do before?
That's just it.
Do you remember why all of this happened? They stopped getting funding from government, or
no? I think the government just deregulated it. So because
but why?
Because universities need money. I mean, they.
Okay.
I think there's programs that make money, programs that cost money, and if you can't charge what the market will bear, then you're leaving money on the table. Which if we want to make an equal society and have people be able to do things by their abilities, it's bad, but they have to run the show too, I guess. So.
Yeah, so they were. Probably made a good case for they weren't making any money or weren't able to keep certain things at the levels that they were, and so we need to deregulate this so we can charge what, and then they probably justified every doubling of it.
Yeah, I'm sure they could.
Yeah, at the time, because otherwise it would seem a little extreme.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what it is. And now, actually, not now, it's more in the 20s now.
Yeah, it's kept rising.
Per year, right? So you're into line of credit because you don't have that money.
Yeah, so I was into my line of credit, but I tried to minimize that, and then my now wife moved in with me too. So and she had, we met in my undergrad university, and then she did some training after that, so she got a job and
she's working.
So
now.
she worked and basically supported us.
Okay,
so,
yeah,
so she had her job and kept me around.
Well, I'm sure that happens a lot in relationships, right?
Yeah.
Because it just seems like such a valuable thing to go to med school, and it's one of those things where there's kind of a clear goal at the end.
Yeah.
It's not like a philosophy degree or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
once you're into medical school, the chances of you getting a job after are not 100%,
but they're pretty good.
But they're pretty high. So
I guess the risk is maybe you won't get the residency match that you want. Or
you may not get exactly what you want.
Yeah,
but you'll get something.
Yeah.
Although now I think they've cut it so tight. There's people that are still are actually having difficulty. They do medical school and have a hard time getting a residency. So which is a newer phenomenon.
It's pretty new, right? And it's because they're going for really competitive areas. Is that why?
No, it's not that. It's well, that can be the case for some.
For some, but the majority.
And for others, it's a matter of matching, and they've cut back the number of residency positions enough that the number of residency positions and the number of doctors graduating is very, very, very close.
Oh, okay.
And they say there is enough, and there is if you count French-speaking residencies in Quebec in the equation. If you take those out, then it's much, much, much tighter.
If you're not bilingual, then
you may have a problem. So
it's
pretty tight.
Everyone listening, you learn French early.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, it's very,
if you want to
very handy.
Get a residency in Canada.
Yeah.
Now, can they leave Canada, and do they for residency?
You can.
You can.
You can do it. It's hard to do that. And if you do that, it's harder to come back.
And because they want you to to show that you have experience in Canada?
Yeah, Canada's regulation system is closed. The system here between here and the United States is very different.
Okay.
So there are places in the U.S. where you can go and do a residency and have no problems coming back here afterwards.
So
and then
really
there's
depends.
other ones where you'll have
Okay.
more of a struggle. So
Sure. Okay. So that's interesting, but you didn't have an issue.
no,
I'm
I was
guessing.
fine.
So you're going through med school. You decide you wanted to specialize at some point.
Yeah, I started off, I wanted to be rural family doctor because that's the only kind of doctor I actually knew.
Of course,
so,
yeah, that's all we know.
And then
usually.
as I went through different rotations, I found things that I like and that I didn't like, and then I ended up where I am. So
Yeah. So, and can you reveal any of that or no?
yeah, so
The specifics?
I did like every different aspect of medicine when I was going through, and that was part of the attraction.
Yeah.
And then I found I liked the sort of sicker end of the spectrum, so I thought, okay, maybe I'll do emergency medicine.
Okay.
And I liked the parts of emergency medicine when people came in and they were really, really ill, and I didn't like as much the sort of walk-in medicine that goes with the emerge department as well.
Okay.
So then I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll do a specialty where, I'm not the first line of that coming in, but then I can kind of, once people have been selected out as being a bit sicker, then
take care
I'll
of
look
that.
after those people, and that's how I ended up doing medicine and internal medicine, and then eventually the intensive care unit. So
Okay. So, and that's where you're spending most of your time these days.
Yeah.
Is the intensive
right.
care unit.
yeah,
And we won't say what hospital or what
No.
city. Excellent. So, and let's talk about the finances during this part then. Okay, so your now wife, but girlfriend at the time, supporting both of you, and plus a line of credit for tuition and that kind of stuff. But at a certain point, then you go into residency.
yeah.
And how long was your residency, or how long was it to start?
Yeah, so my residency, it ended up being 6 years. So.
But yeah, okay, and that was, you knew that from the beginning. Or
Well, I knew you do 3,
Yeah.
and then after that you'll pick either another year to finish off a generalized specialty, or you'll
Okay.
pick another 2 to 3 years to pick specialization.
If you don't want to be a general practitioner or family doctor.
family medicine would be 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
and then I went into internal medicine, which is automatically 3.
Okay.
And then all of the subspecialties of medicine are another couple years after that.
So how much is this? I don't know if this is public or typical. How much does a resident typically get paid?
It's a moving target. I probably couldn't.
Is there a range?
Yeah, I plotted it out on one of my blog posts at one point,
perfect.
but it fits kind of if you look at the typical age group of someone going through residency, we're somewhere between the 50th and the 75th percentile compared to other people our age within Canada in terms of income. So
Okay.
it's upper middle class.
So
I mean,
if the typical, let's say typical is $100,000, or let's say 50.
yeah, it'd be probably closer to 50.
50, then maybe they're making what, 50 to 75% of that? Is that what you're saying?
When I went through, we started off 37, and then I peaked out around 50.
You can
so-
reveal yours.
Yeah.
It's that was.
and it's probably moved a lot. That was
how many years ago? If we can, if
That
you
would have
don't
been
mind?
that would have been the early 2000s.
Yeah. Okay. So you're making somewhere between 37 and 50 as you go along. This is livable, especially at the time.
for sure.
That's a nice, comfortable. It's not full doctor money. Definitely not specialist money. But it's what, like you said, somebody coming out of university might make if, like, I was starting an accounting job, or actually I wouldn't say advertising and marketing, because they started way lower than that if I remember. But so you do start to get paid.
Yeah, you get paid, and it's livable. I mean, it's not corrected for the number of hours that you work.
Yeah,
but it does give you it gives you money to start supporting yourself,
because you're working like the same doctor hours that you would be working when you're not a resident, right? When you're later on when you're a full doctor, right?
Yeah, usually residents don't realize that. Usually
they don't really know until they start doing it.
Yeah, the thing that's different though is when you have graduated, and then you have a bit more control over the situation. So you can work similar hours to what you did before, and you'll make more money. You can work less hours and make less money. You can work in one area and have more opportunities than if you work in another area. So
there's freedom there.
There's freedom there to kind of select, and you make your own money based on what you do. So you can scale that up and scale that down.
Okay, so and you're basically earning your freedom by paying these resident dues, if you will, by doing these long hours learning.
Yeah, it's on the job training basically.
Yeah, that's what it is, right?
It's on the job training, and that's how you get experience.
Yeah,
and the good thing is you actually get.
It
paid,
is nice.
You actually
get
paid something for it.
Yeah. Because suppose they could have built it in a way where you have to do 6 more years just working in a hospital for free as a student, right?
Yeah, probably.
That could have been the original plan.
Could have been the original plan.
I like that this is a paid. I like it especially because my wife is doing this.
Yeah, well, you also need some light at the end of the tunnel, and that's one of the problems with medicine is that yes, you do eventually have a high paying job.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of delayed gratification to get there. So if you have that all pent up along the way without any gradual improvement,
if it was 10 years.
Yeah,
of
then
nothing.
it's like you suddenly win the lottery. You'd be like one of these people who has nothing, wins the lottery, and blows it all in 1 year, and they're broke again.
That's a great point. So the contrast would be even more than it is now.
Yeah.
And so your experience then. You're doing the 6 years. You're not able to touch the debt yet, or were you able to start cracking down on the debt during residency?
Yeah, we started whittling it. We started whittling it down because my wife and I both we lived on very little. Didn't cost us much to live.
You might have been making the same amount of money.
Yeah, and then when I got my residency job, we didn't really change how we lived from when she was supporting us. That's smart. By much. We rented a little house instead of being in the apartment building we were before. And somewhere around my third year, I got a car to drive. It was an older car, but at least I wouldn't get run over in it because I rode my bike up until that point.
Wow. Okay.
And so we didn't spend a lot of money. So really, we were able to whittle down our debt during that time period. Okay. And then towards the later years of my residency, I was able to moonlight. So I'd had when I was doing my fellowship work, I had my license, so I could take and I had several weeks of vacation a year, so I could take a week off and go do a locum somewhere, make some extra money. And once I was able to start doing that, I was able to eliminate the line of credit at that point.
Okay, that's
pretty
awesome.
Quickly.
Okay, so there's a couple things in there. Fellowship, how is that different from residency?
Technically, a fellowship means you have a license already, like an independent license.
And was that after your 6 years, or
there's gray zone? So when I did after 4 years, I got my internal medicine license.
Okay.
So then I still did another couple of years after that as a resident.
Yeah. Where
I was doing my subspecialty training, but I also had an independent license. So as long as I was working, that wasn't interfering with any of the training that I was doing. So if I would do it on vacations, basically.
So that's a fellowship at that point? Is that what it's called?
We used to call it fellowship, but really now the proper term is just another part of residency.
I see. Okay.
And
so
fellowship now, and sort of the latest iteration of the lingo would mean that I've done even my subspecialty training, and I'm doing like an extra bit of time, just doing extra training on top of all that other training, in which case you don't get a resident salary. You have to bill for the work that you do, and then either you get to keep some of it and the university would keep some of it, or whatever institution you're training with is, and you get sort of essentially a salary out of that. But
you're not quite let go yet.
Yeah,
right? You're still
you're working, but you're working part of a supervised program.
So it's like residency without license, residency with license, and then but you're still part of the residency. So you nothing changes on that end. But because you have the license now, locum means you can work remotely for a doctor when they're on vacation.
Yeah, basically, and it has the dual benefits. One is that you're vacation isn't spending money somewhere, and two, that you're actually making money. So yeah, doing that knocks off the debt pretty quickly. I mean, it comes at the cost of
no vacation,
of not having vacation. But
and how was med school and residency for that? Like, I mean, you guess you weren't used to going on vacation.
No, you weren't.
No,
and I was a lot younger back then.
Yeah, and you went from undergrad to med school to residency. So it's not like you're like,
we did
a bunch of trips.
No, we didn't take any trips.
Yeah, so. I guess that's a good benefit of going straight through it. Okay, so you were able to crush the debt then by the end of residency?
Yeah, we did get the line of credit finished off by the end.
That's pretty great.
Yeah, that was good.
Okay, so do you have a memory then of the first time you started making doctor money?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I went and did one of these locums.
Yep.
Somewhere I went up north and did a locum, and then with the amount of money that I'd made in that week, I came home. And I bought myself the most awesome set of weight equipment on the planet.
Okay.
Because prior to that, I'd had like stuff that I'd had from when I was a kid, and it was kind of falling apart.
Yeah.
And then I'd gotten some stuff off Kijiji, which was kind of pretty sketchy. And I was, I wanted to work. For me, one of the issues was with time. If I had to go to a gym, I would never go because I'd have to,
of course,
go do the gym thing, blah blah blah, come back. Whereas if it was in my basement, I could go down in the morning, work out, and then go to work.
So you wanted high quality stuff.
Yeah, I wanted high quality stuff, and I didn't want to get crushed under a bunch of weights in my basement either. So I bought this self-spotting machine. And all this really good equipment.
So were you making, like, did you have a list in your head of things or just ways that you might improve your life once you had a chance, or was this just the first sort of random thing?
Oh no, I've been eyeing that for a while.
Yeah.
And my wife had been after me to do something about it because she didn't want to come down to the basement and find me squished by weights, and she couldn't really help me.
And she didn't want to spot you either.
No,
or maybe couldn't.
Yeah,
right?
we're not a couple that should work out together.
Very different styles.
Yeah.
So, but were you still using a budget at this point? Like, did you carry that through?
Oh yeah, I did, for sure.
And so did you go and make this purchase knowing that everything else was covered and that you were good, and this was extra money for you?
Yeah, it was extra money for us. But I think one of the things that I think, when I said earlier, it's a perfect storm when you start to make the doctor money. Right?
Sure.
So you have years and years of delayed gratification and pent-up demand. And, you can see your friends who finished school before you.
If they didn't take a long residency. Yeah.
Or didn't go into medicine at all.
Sure.
They've had other careers and done other things. And they've got all, they're further down the financial spectrum than you are, whereas you've kind of been bottled up. If you don't do something to kind of acknowledge that, then you can kind of go crazy. It's kind of like the Mennonite Rumspringa, where they have this time where you have to, go let loose a little bit. So
go
that you
discover
can
the world.
Yeah, and then before you go into your full adult responsibility life.
Yeah, I saw that it was the Amish in the States, but the movie Kingpin, and they really explored that in a really, really bad way. But that's the idea.
Yeah,
right?
So this was I splurged on something that I really wanted, and it also wasn't something that was insanely expensive, and also wasn't something that created a structural maintenance problem. So, like the worst thing to do is you get your doctor money and you go buy a huge, ginormous house.
Yes.
Because then it's bigger money and you can't just turn around and get rid of it.
Which, spoiler, you revealed on the blog that you did later.
I did later on.
Later on.
Yeah.
So, okay.
It's about sequence, though.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, you it wasn't like right away. So you buy this weight set, and so as you got a thing that you wanted, and that's good. It's nice. I mean, you've been in school and residency for so long.
Yeah.
So now, how are you managing this new influx of money? And I don't, you can't reveal the details, but do you know averages of say a new doctor or something in your specialty at the time, say, in terms of, I guess, net? Net would probably be what's important, right? Because your gross billings are not your net.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it would depend on how much you worked, but the expected salary for what I was doing was about $150, but people would make more than that.
So that means
somewhere around $250.
Is that $150 in your bank account, or is that $150 before income taxes?
Well, before tax.
Yeah, before taxes,
before
right?
Tax.
What's the income tax rate these days? It's the highest?
Yeah, it's pretty punitive.
Yeah,
at this
is
point.
It like 45 or 50?
It's 54% is the highest.
54% is the highest, and we won't say that if you're making the highest or the less, but we can imagine if the average of that time for your position. Yeah. So you don't even get to keep all of it. You get to keep half or less than half of that.
Yeah, it's funny. I think people that make more money have more disposable income.
Yes.
So yes, we can absorb more tax rates to help pay for what's going on. I think that is actually fair.
I feel that way too.
And that's part of how we can make a society work. However, at some point, if you start to cross psychological barriers where people are it's actually going to modify people's behaviors. Then you start to have a tax that suppresses productivity.
Okay,
which I think
they're not going to do more.
Yeah, and with these, even 5 years ago, it was 48% was the highest marginal tax rate,
and now it's 54.
Well, now it's there's a 5% clawback from the government before you get paid. Okay, and then there's the 54% on top of that. And we have other dues and things that we have to pay that have all risen as well, even though our incomes have not. So even though we do make a lot of income, there's very much diminishing returns after a certain point. And there's a lot of doctors now who I know are scaling back or cutting back or kind of looking, we're always weighing, how much of my investment of my time and
that's a good
sacrifice
point.
Time with my family and run myself into the ground am I going to do for what kind of return? And, maybe I should just work less and enjoy it, because if I work more, even though it's filling a need, if I'm getting
$40
40 cents on the dollar,
Yeah,
I don't know.
very
Is it
interesting.
should I do that and then I have to retire earlier because I've destroyed my body, or can I work slower and longer and not lose as much to the tax, and then have a more, should I smooth it out more? Because that's one of the difficulties about medicine, is that you have this long period of time where you don't make a lot of income and you accrue a lot of debt.
Yes.
And then you have to pay that off, and then you start later essentially to actually have your debt paid off and be making income. So you have a compressed period of time in which to save for your retirement and do these things. And if yes, you make more money, but if the amount you make gets cut because of the tax system, it's actually harder to make more in a compressed period of time compared to somebody who has a long period of time stretched out where they can make, a good wage and not lose as much to tax over that longer period of time, and they get earlier compounding growth and all these things. So.
That's a really interesting point to make, right? Because we always think, doctors raking it in, but you're right. You have less of a time horizon, less compounding time. If somebody starts when they're 19 years old working,
it's very hard to catch up to that.
I don't know what I should look this up. I don't know what a lot of the trades make, but I feel like it's really decent money.
No, they
these
do.
days,
They do. Yeah, they do well.
Yeah, and so if you're doing that, you didn't have any school debt. Or you took maybe 2 years or whatever the apprenticeship was, and you're probably I think I just spoke to someone. You get paid during your apprenticeship, like residency, anyway. Yep. So they're making money from the get go. They're saving up. They could very likely be financially independent before a doctor.
Oh yeah,
because of the late start.
Easily, yeah. So I think that's part of why I think doctors fall into the trap, because they don't realize that. They just see that they're making a lot of money now.
So then they spend it all.
And the money has come in, and they've had all this time of pent-up demand, and then now they have the money, so they want to spend it, and they feel like they need to reward themselves for all of this delayed gratification. So
yeah, I was totally fine with you getting those weights.
Yeah.
That
so
seemed right.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. So you can totally justify it, and you can totally feel okay about it, but you don't realize actually that despite making this large income, after taxes, and when you account for the fact you have to plan for your own retirement and you have a defined period of time where you can do that, you're not as rich as you think.
Yeah.
And you don't want to find that out later, which is what happens to a lot of people. They don't realize till they're now staring it in the face, or something happens and they can't work as much anymore.
Yeah, those are the things we need to worry about. And as physicians, you're much more aware that hopefully that can happen depending on what area you work in, especially. Yeah. Did you then start to make a savings plan, retirement plan, maxing out things, or what?
Yeah, I said my parents' two goals. One was to send us to university, and the other one was to retire early. So, my dad gave me the wealthy barber, and
okay, you had that,
and immediately, even when I was a resident, back then we didn't have TFSAs, but I would max out my RRSP every year,
even as a resident,
even as a resident, just because I didn't declare the deduction yet, because I waited till I had a higher income to do that.
Yeah, okay.
But and then when TFSAs came out, I would stuff those too, and then by that point, I was already a physician, so practicing independently.
So you put money in an RRSP account, but you wouldn't. You can declare the deduction later. You can just sort of save them all up.
Yeah, you can. So when I was a resident,
7 years or something, or no, or is it just?
No, I think it's indefinitely. Don't quote me on that,
yeah,
but I think you can. But it only matters if you're going to have a huge income jump, which you do predictably as a physician.
I don't know if you write about this, but is this something you've written about? Like, if you do this, then of course, yeah,
I probably have. I think currently it would be different because now the TFSA I think has changed the landscape.
You would put the money in there.
I would if that was there, I would have done the TFSA because
you wouldn't have had that much money to put away.
I would have had to choose one or the other.
That's right. Okay,
and I would have chosen a TFSA hands down.
But that was sort of you're doing the TFSA sort of in that you were putting money aside in something, but not claiming the low tax credit you would get. No, you're waiting till you
have to. You have to put money. You have to pay yourself first and put money away for your future before you get the money in your hand.
And then you would have had tuition education credits as well.
Yep.
Or did you pass those on to your wife?
Well, I can't even remember. It was so long
or
ago.
Your parents.
It probably. Well, at first when they paid, it would have been passed on to them.
Yeah.
And then when my wife was supporting us, it would have been passed on to her. So.
Yeah, because these are the big things. I don't know if everybody realizes when you get out of school, if you can only transfer up to $5,000 of tuition to your parents and other people,
and it has to be in the year it occurs.
Exactly, too. Right. So then, otherwise, you have all of these credits, and then when you first start making your first money, which you probably did in residency, you would have pay very little tax after paying for med school for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
I
No.
honestly can't remember anymore.
But that's usually the case, and it's because you have all these credits that you can't use yet, and then you can only.
I remember saving them up, and you could save up the money you spent on equipment and those things.
Yeah,
I think I used it all the first year.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think you have to apply it. You can't carry past an income year.
Yeah. I think that you do too. I'm not sure. But
It's been a while for me too, but
Yeah.
So
I don't think you want to risk losing it.
yeah, exactly. So you had some in your RSP, and then you would have got a nice tax refund. Which are you a reinvest the refund type person?
Yeah,
or spend it?
No, you don't spend it.
A lot of people do.
Yeah, but all that is that's all you're doing with your RSP is you're deferring tax to later. Basically, the government's giving you deferred tax money now, and you're going to pay them the tax later. So it's not really a gift.
David Chilton actually wrote a separate article about this, and apparently the stats are a lot of people don't.
So, I mean, I'm fortunate to be in the position I am where I can max out my TFSA, max out my RSP, and still save money. But if I wasn't, I would do my RSP and I'd take that refund and use it to top up my TFSA.
Yeah.
And get the government to fund my other tax-free account.
That's actually really smart. If you have the ability to do that. Otherwise, try your best to put money in a TFSA or RSP accounts.
Money that passes into my hand is going to go out of my hand. So
the
best way to save is to have it go straight into one of these accounts.
That's a smart realization.
Where I know I'm not going to touch it.
In TFSA, do you feel like you? Then always feel the need to clarify. These are investments. These are not accounts. These are plans. So you would either you can have money in a savings account or money in an investment, and then say to the bank or whoever it's with or the investment company, "Hey, this is under the RSP plan. Can you report it to the government?" That's what that is. There's no such thing as putting money in an RSP or a TFSA. They're just designations. So that's my public service announcement.
Yeah, and the biggest public disservice we've had is called the TFSA a savings account.
Oh man, it's not.
It's terrible. It's just that's like the one gift investment account that you'll ever get.
Yeah, it really, because there's stories.
Don't blow it on a savings.
Oh, just leave it in.
Savings are for saving, and it's not even a good savings account because if you take money out, it's not like you can turn around and put it back in the same calendar year.
Yeah, you can't. You have to wait till the next year.
So it's not a good savings account, and it's a great investment account.
It's I guess they were trying to encourage people to save money at all with that name.
I think it was politically more palatable to call it a savings account.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's stories of how the TFSA was just starting, and it was 5,000 or 5,500 as the years went on per year, and I can't do a lot with that. But then there was these stories of people who invest, like the money that they put in there. They just happened to get lucky and it grew.
Yeah.
Somebody somehow has $50,000 in a TFSA designated investment account when that's higher than the limit ever could be. And that's because the growth,
you can have that growth.
You can have that growth and it's tax free.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of benefits of having, even risky stuff in a TFSA.
Yeah, I think for me, my approach to TFSA is when you're in your accumulating phase, it's got to be put the growthy stuff in there.
Yeah,
and just let it sit there for years and years and years. Don't touch it, and you don't want to put the sort of safer income generating stuff until later when you actually want to use it as income.
Yeah.
Because then you'll actually have more there to generate income if you let it grow first.
That's the best part about the TFSA for me is when you need it, you're just taking money out of an account. Mm-hmm. You don't have to. The government doesn't say, "Please pay me tax on this."
Yeah.
It's not income.
No,
it's just money.
Exactly.
And that's really, I like that aspect of it, and I hope.
Well, you have paid tax on it. You've paid
We've
tax
already
on it.
done it.
Paid tax on it before you put it in there.
That's right. Which is what David Chilton was saying in his article is people are doing that anyway by spending their refund. He really does compare them in an equal way. The only way the RSP is advantageous is if you do reinvest the tax refund. And then I like your point of putting it in the TFSA.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing that could be an advantage with the RSP, which would be potentially for people like a physician who makes a high income while they're working, and then when you retire, if you have like a low cost of retirement, then you go from paying it out and getting refunded at a high marginal tax rate, and then take it out at a low marginal tax rate, then you've actually reduced your taxes, not just deferred them. So
definitely a benefit for
so if you go,
in your
if
position.
you're going from high to low, that's
which
a benefit.
you can pretty much guarantee that's going to happen. The only
I hope.
well,
I put in stuff at 48% a few years ago, and it's now 54. It's the marginal rate. So
wow, yeah, right.
So if we continue down that
who
path,
knows what the tax rates are going to be?
Who knows what they'll be when we retire? We really don't know. So it is possible.
And the other risk
that
for
you could get burned on that.
Yeah, the other thing that you might run into is because you have a high rate of savings. Is the minimum withdrawal rates might be too high. There are worse problems to have.
There's
than
worse problems
to take
to have.
out too much money. But if the idea, as you said, is to pay less tax, and like this is mostly about just taking advantage of the government, and not like letting them win constantly, right?
Yeah.
And take more and more money from us. Like out of principle, you want to be paying less tax, right? Even if that means more money for you, it's still like you're giving them more tax.
Yeah, well, you're going to owe them the tax at some point.
Yeah.
So, and that that helps keep everything running.
The tax.
I'm not anti-tax. I'm worried about taxes that modify behaviors that in ways that we don't want.
Which we discussed.
Discussed. And the thing with the RRSP is that you don't have to wait till you're older to take those minimum things out. So, like, if I were to have a highly punitive tax rate for continuing to work, I may just retire early. And then if I retire, say, in my 50s, you can start melting down your RRSP in your 50s and do it over a gradual period of time and keep your marginal tax rate low.
That's a good point. So if you ever think that you're going to have a too high of a minimum withdrawal rate, like, if you got millions and millions of something in there,
I would start early on it and
do some projections.
That's why, I think you need to plan how the extraction strategy. I think is much more difficult to plan than the accumulation strategy.
Everybody focuses on like, I'm going to have this much for retirement. Maybe you can retire or be financially independent earlier. I like to use the FI terminology because retirement isn't what it used to be, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're saving, you're maxing things out wherever you can. And when did you decide you wanted to start like writing? We should probably jump into the blog. Yeah, sure. No, I decided to do that. I was on a vacation with my kids. Mm-hmm. We had I'd just done my black belt in karate. Wow,
and part of that was reading self-help books, which I've never done.
Okay.
And I read a few books on leadership because I figured, well, at least that's something I'd be interested in doing. One of them was Stephen Covey, who's a famous leadership writer, and one of his book for the
7 Habits.
Yeah, so the 7 Habits, and then the 8th habit is finding your voice. And which at that point, finding your voice is meant for more the sort of information age, where if there's something that you have that you can help others with, and that's valuable, and then get it out there, then maybe that's something that you could pursue. So I
like that.
So I thought about that, and I thought, okay, well, this was also around the time where the government was just starting to really go after the small businesses and corporations and physicians in general.
Okay.
And so I think morale, I think, it's fair to say, has been pretty low.
Yeah. Especially
around the issue of money. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, this is something I do know about, and you can have a healthy relationship with it or a bad one. And a lot of doctors are starting to actually pay a bit more attention now, because there's, before you just put your head to the grindstone and you'd go.
Yeah.
And you enjoyed your work, and you knew you were going to be financially secure and everything's good. But if you're being vilified and your financial piece is being targeted, well, you don't feel so secure anymore, and you don't feel as warm and fuzzy about it anymore, and that leads people to get burnt out.
Sure. So they're working harder to sort of make up for it?
Well, there's two approaches. Yeah. One is, I think the assumption is when they do this that people just work harder to continue to support their lifestyle, and if they leak more out as tax, then they'll accept that. But I think the smarter way really is to look at how you're spending your money and make sure you're doing it in a way that actually is you're getting enjoyment out of it. Mm-hmm. And then when you look at your work, well, if you handle your finances correctly, then your work can be something that you enjoy and find rewarding, and it's not just for money. Because if it's just for money, you're going to burn out, you're going to hate it, and you're not going to last. You're not going to have the career you could have had. If you get your financial house in order as a physician, you can have the best career ever, because you'll be fine financially, and you can be free to kind of shift into all these different opportunities that come up as a physician, to kind of go where you think you're needed and where the interest is and where you think you can actually do something good with your time.
And not worry about money.
And not worry about money.
Money should never be the goal, right?
It shouldn't be. But if people are spending and they have to have their money to support what they're spending, then they have to work.
Now it's
and
a
they
prison.
They have to do that. Whereas if you can free yourself from that, you can actually do so much more.
What a terrible thing, right? Where you train for so long to get this high-paying job, and now you're being held hostage by this lifestyle that you think that you either deserve or can afford, but you really can't.
Yeah, and we've created those cages ourselves.
Yeah, that's true. Eh?
You know, so it is something we can actually control.
Yeah, and so you had this insight because it seems like you never had a lot of issue with this kind of self-control, other than the weights, or what? Did you ever have any other incidents?
Oh yeah, I know. I've spent money in other ways too, but we've always made sure that our plan was on track, and then if we had extra, then we could decide what to do with it.
Yeah, that's very responsible. It just seems like something that you've built up from when you were a kid, and even in the cadets probably helped you. And your parents are very careful or precise.
They're careful, and they just, even for my grandparents, they enjoy things that don't cost a lot of money. And my wife and I were the same, and we've still been the same. And with our kids, we're the same. We do a lot of things together that don't cost a lot of money, and we're quite happy with that. And we have also done things that have cost us a lot of money, and we honestly haven't enjoyed as much. We have done some of the expensive vacations, and it was okay, but we missed our dogs and I would be annoyed by it because I know that this is costing me so much money and I have to work so much to actually pay for all of this.
Yeah.
That it's not really as enjoyable realizing that, so.
Yeah, and if you enjoy spending money, fine. Then you can do whatever you want. But think about whether you're actually enjoying this, right?
Yeah, and physicians can spend money, and we are very, very fortunate that way. The key is to spend it wisely and actually to be deliberate with it, rather than just kind of go along with the which way the wind is blowing or whatever the pressures are around you socially.
What a doctor's supposed to be.
Yeah, to be. Don't be what a doctor's supposed to be.
Yeah,
be yourself.
Yeah.
And do what you think is important, and don't worry about anybody else thinks.
Absolutely. So you were thinking of a domain for this blog, or you knew you wanted to write online. That was the thing, or were you thinking of maybe writing a book or what?
Well, I thought I'd write online. It's a bit more free form. So. And
the domains, did you have the Loonie Doctor, which is a play on Canadian words, $1, right? Yeah. And I like it. And this was supposed to be also people thinking of it's fun, and that loony as well.
Yeah, well, that is because that's what I say by being yourself and not worrying what other people think the mold that you should fit into is. Because some people look at some of the things I do and they would think I'm a little loony. But you know what? I'm happy, and I think there's a reason why eccentric people tend to actually have a bit more happiness than the average population. There's studies to show that because they can dance like nobody's watching and they don't care.
That's right. I love that. That's really great. So you started writing, and then were you starting to get a lot of feedback from other physicians reading, or just? I mean, you told your colleagues, or did you tell them right away?
No, I didn't tell anybody right away.
Okay.
I mean, part of why I did this is because we would have all these clandestine conversations in the hallways because there's a big taboo around money in medicine. And,
I'm sure there is.
We all get into medicine, I think, for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Those who don't last.
Okay.
And we all our focus is doing a great job and looking after our patients and that aspect of it. However, looking after our finances is important for us to actually function. It's like the physical body of a practice, and if you neglect it, then you get sick. And you can have all the heart you want, but you're not going to be at top of your game. So we do actually, people will talk about it and ask me about it, but they do it quietly and kind of on the side because no one wants to be seen as the doctor who cares about money.
What would they say to you? Just say an example conversation.
Would there be specific things about billing, or there'd be more general questions about how should I invest, or how should I use an RSP, should I incorporate or should I not incorporate?
Yeah,
those would be some of the big common questions.
More specific ones,
or for running my practice.
For people who are working in medicine. and then just more general ones that everybody might have too.
Yeah.
But you would be able to advise, like they would just come to you. Did everyone start to just know you were the person?
Well, they're the people who work with me know, because I have helped work the business side of our practice for years.
Perfect.
So they know that I know how to do that
Yeah.
aspect of it. So they'd ask me questions around that
They
usually.
need to come to you.
Yeah.
So what about response from, you're in one place in one hospital, or maybe a few different hospitals, but in one city. Were you able to reach like the rest of Canada?
Well, I think that's what the blog's for. And I think I am gradually getting out there to reach more. And for any physicians that do read my blog, share it with your friends.
Yeah.
Unless you don't like them.
Well, there's only when I was looking into this, there's only a handful in Canada. Am I right?
Yeah, there's a
few.
There's only very few of us. I mean, there's a lot of people writing in the U.S. about finance that are physicians.
But it's a little bit different.
There's a lot there. I think we share a lot of the same issues.
Yeah,
and we share a lot of the same issues with everybody. But in Canada, physicians have some different issues. And, as some of the things we've talked about, I think physicians have some different issues from the average person in the population, too. So there was really no one writing about that here. And so, again, it's one of these areas I think there was a need and an area where I could find my voice and try to actually move things forward in some way.
Because in the States, the Physician on Fire is probably
Physician on
one.
Fire, and there's White Coat Investor. Those are the two big ones.
But that they would talk generally about things that would affect, as you said, the perfect storm when you say leave residency and the income coming in. Those might apply, but then in terms of strategies, a Canadian might not get a lot of value out of that.
Yeah. I think we have the landscape here is quite different. So in the U.S., most physicians are employees.
Okay, interesting.
There's both models, but
here, of course, it's a totally different system.
Here we have it's most of us have to run a business in some form or another. There are some
corporation is big.
Yeah,
right?
Some people have a salary, but most people have to run a business. So there's that aspect of it which is different, and then our taxation system. It's very, very different.
Yeah, so that aspect of it too. Yeah,
and then but also on the plus side, we have universal health care. So so that makes the business part of it a bit different too. Where the U.S. you're free to set prices and set your business model however you want based on the market.
Sure,
but you may not get paid anything.
Oh yeah,
and you still have things to do. Whereas here, you're pretty much you're mostly guaranteed to get paid, probably 95% of the time,
because it's the government that is paying.
Yeah, unless they can find ways out of it, but you usually get paid. But you also don't get to set your fees.
I'm curious.
You don't get to set your fees, and you don't get to.
How would the government find their way out of paying you? Is there an example of that?
Oh yeah, there's examples of that. So everybody in Ontario, I'm sure, thinks that they're insured by OHIP, but they're not.
Okay.
So if they haven't filled out a card or is expired, and then they'll go see the doctor, and even if you get your card reinstated, the government won't go back and pay you for that.
Really?
So you either have to bill the patient directly or just accept it as a loss.
So if I had
most of us just accept it as a loss.
If my OHIP card, my health card for Ontario was expired right now, and I went in and it's say my regular doctor and they don't check, is that a situation? And then they perform services, they bill, the government looks.
Government will say sorry.
Yeah. Oh, that sucks.
Okay,
so everybody listening, make sure your cards are up to date because you're
I even had one once where a patient passed away, and I looked after them where they had passed away, and then I submitted for my bill within a week of them passing away, and the government had canceled their health card and was refusing to pay for the service I provided leading up to their death because they said, well, they're dead and they have no health card anymore.
Wow.
So they can find way. It's very fun. It's funny the ways they can find.
I don't like that the government.
It's almost comical.
Did that, but also that's a huge lesson in timely billing. All right.
Yeah.
For any business.
Yeah,
because,
it is.
Hey, you never know what's going to happen to somebody. So you'd be like, if you perform a service, you bill it right away, doctor or not. Collect your money because you don't know what's going to happen to somebody.
No.
Because it could happen to anybody. If somebody like a business, a vendor just did something, or you did something for them and they owe you money. This person passes away. you may eventually get the money, but it's going to be hard now, right?
I mean, yeah, and when that sort of happens, most of us just kind of...
Well, yeah, and it sounds like you wouldn't bill a patient
No.
if they were alive, even.
I don't, but again, like I say, most of the time we get paid.
Yeah.
So it's not a big... If it was like a big issue, then I would
then
probably
you can-
have to, but...
And you can afford a few things here and
exactly.
there.
Yeah,
But that's
exactly.
interesting that the government takes that out on you. You know, you think that they would bill the person who didn't have the card,
No,
right?
that wouldn't.
Or that they would pay you and then try
No,
to collect from them.
no, they wouldn't, because that wouldn't be very politically smart, would it?
Yeah. That's
It's,
actually...
it's better who you know...
Do it to the doctors.
Yeah,
exactly.
They're going to let you hold the bag.
So you're going to keep, do you post on a regular basis? Do you have a sporadic schedule?
Yeah,
whenever you can?
I try to post something every week. I've missed a few here and there because I've just
Sure.
been busy and
Hey,
life's been
that's
busy, but I try to put something out each week.
understandable.
Yeah. And
And-
the things that I'm writing about, I try to get into a fair bit of detail about it, and because a lot of the big physician blogs, they'll give good general descriptions, and same with a lot of the personal finance blogs. It's very good generalized information, but physicians have very specific.
Yeah, and you're a niche blog.
There's
so you
it's
should
very
get into the
niche.
Yeah.
So I end up having to go into detail sometimes, which is niche, which takes a long time to work through.
Yeah, because
on
I'm
my
sure
on my end to make sure things are correct. So
I'm sure anybody can get value out of all the general personal finance blogs, including my own. But yeah, we don't know the specifics, and that's where you shine, right? You not only know the specific, you've been through it, you know what works or doesn't, so you've lived through it.
And I think that's an issue for physicians, especially because if you do want to do managing your own finances as a physician, you can do that, but find the information that you need to do, that's more difficult because it is specialized.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also there's a big industry of people who would love to do it for you.
Yes.
Who have all that information, and they won't put it out there freely.
No.
Because that's how they make their livings too. So
yeah.
So you can pay for it, and it's hard to find it if you're not. And there's good reasons for that too, because it is very specialized. And really, even when I give situations on my blog, everybody's situation as a physician is very different. So you actually do need people you need accountants and you need experts.
Yes, but
part of that.
There's nothing wrong with learning a little bit yourself, right? So that when you're dealing with those experts, you understand.
I think you have to, because one of the things that I've found to be the gap is accountants are great at taxes, and they can take whatever mess you've given them and they can sort out the taxes.
We're good at organizing,
but. And if you have a financial advisor and you're using that, or you're doing yourself, if you don't organize your portfolio the right way, well, there's not much the accountant can do with that.
That's right.
And you have to kind of know a bit yourself to know how you can bridge from one to the other. And they actually may function as silos separately. So if you don't know about these things, you'll never know what you don't know, and your accountant will go on and do your taxes, and everything will be fine, and your advisor could do, and your financial stuff, you can do that and be fine, but they're not as good as they could have been if you made them work together. And
it's only as good as the source materials you provide, right?
Yeah.
If you don't submit all the expenses you could, or you don't give them, if you don't talk about what your goals are for your finances, right, then somebody's just going to put you in something, and you'll be like, well, that doesn't, I wanted to buy a house, and that's now locked up in RSP.
Yeah, so you have to understand these things yourself.
Yeah, it's good to have that. Well, and I appreciate your writing, especially for this hole in the market that there was in Canadian personal finance. So thanks for coming and telling. I don't think I said your name at all, right?
No, I don't. I think we did good.
But I am going to go through this and edit it and take out anything that would reveal. So so it's looniedoctor.ca.
Yeah,
and that's LOONIE, right? Doctor is pretty standard, and you can. Go online and read. And can people? I think I couldn't get a hold of you on the website, but you're saying you maybe put back a contact.
Yeah, I fixed it back.
Okay, so great. So there's a way to contact you on the site. People can ask you specific questions. I mean, you're not. You can't give them specific advice.
I can try to be helpful.
Yeah.
However, I'm not a financial
advisor. Or would
advisor.
you prefer that they just read the blog?
Reading the blog is generally the best.
Okay.
And I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an accountant, and everybody's situation is very, very specific, especially with medicine and corporation and all these issues. There's a lot of nooks and crannies there. So.
Do people comment on the blog, or do you have that?
Yeah, there's comments.
Yeah, so people can put comments on, and then I'm sure you reply to.
Yeah,
to
I'll
those.
take my best crack at it.
So yeah, so if there's anything that needs clarification, then
and that's actually the best way, because then other people who are
get the benefit.
Other people are thinking the same question
for sure. Yeah, there's always
get
people
the answer.
thinking what you're thinking.
Yeah, or sometimes people will just point out a different angle, which is important to know about too. So it's better to have that there for everyone to sort of see and benefit.
And you are on Twitter as well. Did I find
you on
Twitter?
Yeah, I did. I have like a thing that automatically does that.
Okay,
but
so
I'm
not active.
Yeah, I'm not.
Okay. So the blog is the place.
The blog is the place. I'm technologically a little challenged.
Great. Okay, so go to the blog. It's all good. It's all good. Well, okay. Thanks so much for telling your story. This is great.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
If you like this episode, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. While you're there, please leave me a 5-star rating, a review, or both. If you're already a subscriber, you're awesome. Please join my Facebook group so I can thank you personally. To find the group, go to Facebook and search for The Personal Finance Show. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Personal Finance Show. I'll be back next week with the author of The Art of Allowance and the creator of The Money Mammals, John Lanza.